everybody, and welcome to another episode of Junk Food and You, where I talk about sort of random candy things or stories, or talk about brands I like, or I don't know, all kinds of stuff like that. Today I've decided to talk about a place. One of the questions that comes up often, because I travel a lot and I eat a lot of candy. So I've had candy from all kinds of different places. I've had Turkish Delight in Turkey. I've had chocolate in Switzerland. I've had gummies in Germany. So I've been lucky enough to sort of get around the world, try some really interesting stuff from all different parts. And so one of the things that sort of comes up is sort of like chocolate is a big thing. And so some people talk about like where the best place to get chocolate is. And there's debates between Belgium, Switzerland, Germany makes it in there too. England does too a little bit. And I'm going to talk about England in this because one of the things that England sort of, the caveat I'm going to give England in this is they may not have sort of the greatest chocolate shops in the world. I mean, they have great chocolate shops, don't get me wrong, but it's not really known for the chocolate shops. But one of the things that they're really known for is candy bars. And that's because, I mean, to some degree, I've never really, I've done a bit of history on it. I mean, the first chocolate bars came out of Switzerland. But like candy bars is sort of this next level where you're adding extra ingredients and things like that. And I think England, particularly the British Empire, had a big part to do with that. Like whether or not they were actually producing it in England back in the olden days, or whether they were just sort of taking ingredients from different parts of the world and then, you know, bringing it in. It was during a time when a lot of food flavors were coming together. England was sort of the one of the hubs. And so it became a real sort of candy bar mecca. And it still is. And historically, there's one place in England that I'm going to say might be deserving the title, the candy bar capital of the world, at least historically. Maybe they're not making as many this time, but they are still making one bar, which is very noteworthy in this. But it's not maybe the place that's making the most candy bars right now, or you know, innovating. Right now, it's actually quite a global thing. You can find amazing candy bars, and the United States has a lot of sort of, you know, things. But even in the United States, you couldn't pick a city that is the candy bar capital. But I think historically, York in the UK is the historical candy bar capital of the world. It is the birthplace of the candy bar. Maybe it wasn't the first place to have it, but when you think about candy bars, modern candy bars, it really is a really important place. To get it, sort of to talk about it in a modern way, the first thing that I want to talk about, the one sort of thing that where I can sort of say is the Kit Kat bar is still made there. And the best Kit Kat bar, the British Kit Kat bar, if you go on Candy Critic, the only bar to get a perfect review is a British Kit Kat bar, and they are made in York. So already it has the title of manufacturing, presently, one of the best, if not the best candy bar, and in my opinion, one of the best candies in the world is manufactured there. So already that's something. That's an amazing thing. But there's a history there, because the Kit Kat bar was actually invented in York as well. And there's a whole bunch of other things that were invented in York. The Aero bar, the Terry's Chocolate Orange, Fry and Cadbury, the candy makers, were trained in York by the Roundtree family. The Roundtree is this candy company that sort of doesn't exist anymore. Nestle owns a bunch of it. The property sort of went all over. Hershey's makes some of the stuff in the States for them now. So some stuff, and even in Canada, still has a Roundtree label. But Roundtree is like this candy brand that, particularly probably in the 80s and before then, was massive. Just massive. Like, this brand is everything when it comes to candy bars. And York is where it started. And when you go to York, one of the things you'll find is there is all kinds of streets and stuff, Roundtree this and Roundtree that. So there's still like historical things there. There's actually, you can go to the place where the original factory was. That's kind of neat. One of the more interesting sort of Roundtree historical places that I got to explore in a sort of unique way was the original Roundtree store. And the original Roundtree store is now a Pizza Hut. So, you know, I like Pizza Hut, so I'm not going to complain too much, because I went there to get pizza. And I went there to get pizza not because, you know, I mean, I do enjoy Pizza Hut enough, but I didn't go there for it. I went there because I knew that this was where Roundtree started, but it's also where Fry and Cadbury, the candy makers, not the brands, but the actual people, got their start. And they learned how to make chocolate there. So there's like a lot of history that used to be in that space. So I thought, You know, if I'm going to go for lunch, why not go for pizza at this place and sort of enjoy that? So I was mentioning to my server, and I said, oh, you know, I'm a real chocolate, you know, fan, and I really love this kind of stuff and history and everything like that. And I said, and did you know that this is where so many of these things were started? And my server was like, yeah, actually I do, you know, and they were sort of into it too. It's kind of neat. And then my server said, listen, if you give me 5 minutes and meet me upstairs, I can show you something really cool. And so I was, yeah, sure, why not? I went upstairs, you know, a few minutes later, and the server was there, and he had this big old skeleton key, and there was this old door, and he opened this door, and you go into this place, and it's sort of a dilapidated part of the building. It's kind of falling apart. There was literally a staircase that had collapsed, but it was still the same as it was likely back when that was a chocolate shop. And apparently that was the residential area in the dorms where people lived when they worked at the chocolate place. So your Cadburys and your Fries and some of the Roundtrees lived and played up there. And so it's sort of in its, again, it hasn't been restored, so it's in bad condition, but it's in that original condition. So I sort of got to walk around it, and I had to be a little careful because literally parts of it were falling apart. But you know, a little bit of that history is still up there in that top part. And I'm not saying everybody who goes can ask their server to go see it, but if you are in York and you are at that Pizza Hut, you know, ask. They might, you know, if it's again, if it's still there. It was a couple of years ago when I did that, but it was a really cool experience. And near that area is actually the place where Terry's Chocolate Oranges started. And the Terry's shop is now a jewelry shop. But below the windows of the jewelry shop, it says Terry's. And it's sort of in that same sort of elegant font that they still use today on their chocolate oranges. So that's another sort of piece of history that's right there in that area. The other thing that York has, and I mean, they have some really good candy shops. There's a fudge shop that's absolutely amazing. It's a chain in the UK, but it's like a small chain, and they do like handmade fudges, and they give you samples, and they're really good. So there's a recognition of that, but there's also a chocolate museum, which I checked out, which basically tells you the history of chocolate. And one of the cool things about this museum is they go through everything from like the Mayans to like the early European sort of importations to when in Switzerland, you know, milk chocolate sort of started to come out, and sort of through that history. And it's a really great museum. One of the great things about it is, as you travel through this museum, you have a guide with you, and your guide presents you with chocolate things made in that style. So when you're in the Mayan times, sort of learning about that, you get a cup of hot cocoa without the sugar and everything, with spices, sort of a spicy hot cocoa, and made with. And then when you get to the early sort of before Peters and Nestle sort of created the milk chocolate we know, there were sort of earlier forms. They actually give you a sample of the earlier forms of milk chocolate before it was, you know, they were able to sort of really dry it out and make it preservable. Then you get to like milk chocolate and all the different sort of fancy things. And at the end, you get to make chocolates. There's like a chocolate maker there that, you know, you make a little square and you make a little chocolate lollipop. All this for the price of, with the price of admission. So you're going to be full of chocolate. The cool thing too is your little chocolate and your chocolate lollipop type thing. They pack it up for you, because by the time you get to that, you don't want any more chocolate. It's one of the best chocolate museums I've ever been to. I've been to a couple, but it's definitely one of the best. It's got a really cool bit of history. It's got a lot of cool stuff. And because York is such a hub for candy bars, they have some really good like old packages of like Kit Kats and Arrows and stuff like that. Like that history is around that area. So it's a great museum for that sort of thing. So like, I mean, York has a lot of other cool things. It has a cool railway museum. It's got a cool wall that goes around it. There's all kinds of great things about York to go visit. But I really think, to me, York feels like the candy bar capital of the world. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you might have another opinion. Let me know if you know a place that I should check out that might be better for candy bars. I don't think it's the chocolate capital. I think there's maybe, like, I've been to Belgium and there's like a lot of chocolate history there. Switzerland is where the milk chocolate was invented, so they have sort of a bit of history there. But as far as candy bars go, I've never been to a place that just so understands it so well. So thanks for watching another episode of Junk Food and You. As always, you can follow us on Twitter @CandyCritic, or go to candycritic.org and find links to all of our other social media, including Instagram, Facebook, all that kind of fun stuff. Also, you can go to patreon.com/candycritic, and there you'll find our Patreon page where we get previews for all of our videos. You get all kinds of bonus content. You also get free issues of our micro comic called Snack Facts. Depending on the tier, sometimes you just get an issue. per month, but certain tiers have access to the full back library as well. So make sure to check that out. You can also, if you just want to get our micro comic for as low as 50 cents, you can get an issue. It's a micro comic is a small comic with the host Sir Francis Sweetums and Barbara, who explore the history and the fun stuff about candy and snacks and stuff like that in a little comic book format. It's a micro comic. You can print it up yourself and you can fold it. So one piece of paper and you can fold an entire little micro comic yourself. Or you also, when you buy it, you get a downloadable version that you can read on a tablet or anything like that as well. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.